So before we get started, we are taking a look at our project. We are loading all the audio material and files and tracks and samples we are going to use in our mix. And we're trying to order it a little bit, name everything and color it. So as you can see here, I've placed drum elements in the upper part of the project and instrument elements in the lower part of the project, and recordings like vocals can be found here in the middle of the project. And sometimes you probably have more audio recordings, sometimes you have more like MIDI tracks and synthesizers, depending on what style you're doing. And first, I'm trying to set this order of the elements so we can easily find our way through the project. Then I'm trying to color everything accordingly. And also I'm trying to create buses when needed. For example, here we have a group of 3 bass sounds placed together in one group. So we have the possibility of affecting all these 3 bass sounds on the effect section in this group here. Also, if I open up the vocal samples here, you see we have audio recordings. And sometimes you might have a project with many audio recordings and they're not always playing. For example, our vocals are not always singing. So you could go ahead and cut parts that are not actually adding any audio or any relevant audio information to your mix. But it also kind of depends on your creative goal, because sometimes you have some organic background noises in your recordings and you actually want to use them, then it's fine to leave those parts where nothing's really happening. It depends on what you want to do, but for a better overview, you could think of cutting parts where nothing's happening just to be sure where everything is sitting. Another important element of mix preparation is finding an appropriate reference track. Like we have 2 reference tracks down here. We're just going to use one, this one. Our human ear has trouble making relative decisions. And especially after hours of mixing and adjusting faders in the studio. So if you have the opportunity to compare your own mix against a commercial professionally sounding mix, that is going to lead to more accurate results. In other words, referencing is a pretty efficient and probably the quickest way to close the gap between sounding amateur or professional. Also, be sure to take your time to find the right reference track for your own work in progress, because there are so many differences in the musical styles of sound. So it should actually be quite close to what you're doing. So it's easier to reference back and forth. And we are placing our reference track into our project because the quicker we can switch between the reference track and our work in progress, the more obvious the contrast is going to be. Imagine if you have to go to your MP3 player and look for the MP3s, load them in, play them, and then go back to your DAW. That will take a while and your ear will have already forgot how your mix sounded. So it's better to have it inside of your project, easily accessible. Also, your reference track and the track you're working on should have the same level of loudness, because to the human ear, something that's louder, if it's simply louder, it already sounds better. So what we're doing is we are loading in our reference track, like this one down here, and then we are taking the level of the reference track and we are adjusting it according to the current level of our mix, to be sure it's equally loud and we don't fall into that trap of perceiving something that's louder as better. Another aspect of preparing our mix is making sure we don't have anything on our master. Now we are taking off any limiters, any gain controls, and well, we could leave an analyzer, that's not a problem, but be sure you don't have any limiter on your master channel while mixing, because when you're mixing tracks, you should focus on making your mix sound musical and punchy. You shouldn't focus on making it sound loud. That's done later. Give yourself the rule that you will never put a limiter on your master fader while you're still mixing, so we're taking it off. If you limit while you mix, you will have a distorted perception of your dynamics and frequencies. Be sure to get a great mix first and then limit later.